do have a quorum and all members are present. I'm going to go ahead and move into the public forum and ask Ms. Guthrie if she'd like to come up and address the board. Welcome.
Good evening, how are you? I'm Susan Guthrie, I'm the new town manager, and I haven't had a chance to meet a couple of you or participate in meetings with you, so just wanted to make sure I presented myself to all of you. I think it's about a week and a half now been on board, so getting to know all of the staff and community members and finding my way around. I've previously worked for the city of South Padre Island the last 2.5 years, and then prior to that worked for the city of Tyler, Texas for 9 years, and some private sector stuff in my background. But I'm very happy to be here, excited to work with all of you, and I just appreciate being here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And welcome, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing that there's no one else to speak at the public forum, I'm going to go ahead and close the public forum and move on to discussion action items. Item number 1, discuss and consider approval of the regular meeting minutes from January 16, 2019.
I was going to propose a couple of changes. Page 2, up at the top of number 5, it references President Giordano. And at the bottom of the page, it was seconded by member Anthony. So,
That's what copy and paste does.
huh? Hey.
That's what copy and paste does. I will go back and double check who actually.
Other than that,
Obviously President Shatter, and I will see who seconded that bottom part.
other than that, I didn't have any other things.
No one else has anything? I think we can go ahead and approve them as amended, right?
Yes, please.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Bokniak and a second from Mr. Weeks to approve. Sorry, I got to go back to my agenda. The January 16, 19 meeting minutes. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. It passes unanimously. Now let me go back to the agenda, and I apologize. I probably should always have a written thing of the agenda, Tracy, because so I don't have to,
one if you would like to.
yeah, so I don't have to go back and forth with all the attachments that you sent. That just helps. Thank you very much. Okay. And I'll start bringing them. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2. Discuss and consider the January 2019 financial reporting and related financial items. Ms. Phyllis.
Good evening. For the month of January, or as of January the 31st, 2019, we had year-to-date revenues of $194,124.60. Sales tax recorded year-to-date is $140,360. That includes 2 months accrual and 2 months actual. Our interest year-to-date is $5,772.48, and special assessment receipts that we've collected year-to-date total $47,989.43. Year-to-date expenses total $38,427.18, with the month-to-date expenses including our routine payroll. We had the transfer out to the general fund, the annual transfer out to the general fund of the 12th IEDC recertification, and a conference for ICSC. That brings our total fund balance to $2,486,001. Currently, you'll see that we still are showing the barn at Long Creek assigned at $54,000. That will be coming off. We will take care of that as we go through the mid-year budget process, which is coming up next month. That leaves your actual unassigned fund balance will be at $2,298,649 once we unassign the barn at Long.
Thank you, Ms. Phyllis.
I
Mr.
have
Treasurer.
just a quick question. That special assessment, remind me again what year we're in on that?
We are in year 3.
And it's total of 3 or total of 5?
It's a total of 5 years.
5 years.
So we have 2 more years of collections. We did have a lot of the businesses pay their assessment up front, the entire assessment up front in year 1. So I believe for this current fiscal year, we only had budgeted $47,000 or $54,767 for year 3, and you're going to see for 1920 and for 2021 that amount will go down a little bit for the next 2 years. So we have collected year to date, since the special assessment began, a total of about $470,000, and that was on a $550,000 original assessment.
Thank you. And you said that that 12,000 transfer, that's an annual payment?
That's an annual transfer into the general fund, covers audit costs, reporting, some personnel, just the reporting duties that the general fund provides, part of the audit that is an annual, has been at $12,000 for a number of years.
Thank you for that, Phyllis. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the January financials as presented.
Second it.
I have a motion for Mr. Bachniak and a second for Mr. Corr to approve the January 19 financials. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3. Thank you, Phyllis.
I'm actually staying for the whole meeting, but you're welcome.
Discuss and consider Sunnyvale Day at the Capitol and event budget. I guess that's Tracy.
I will pass this over to Terry.
You'll pass this over to
It's
me.
like paper.
Well, so Tracy and I are working on Sunnyvale Day at the Capitol. And I'm not sure what the event budget has been in the past, but I do know when I was on the board and Pam Mundo was our consultant that we went every other year during session. And at the time, typically the Type A board paid for the bus and for lunch. And then also provided like coffee and donuts and some snacks on the bus. And then if we decided to stop for dinner, which on this case we're not, if you've seen the flyer, everybody was on their own for dinner. So I'm not sure what the actual budget is. I just know that in the past, whenever we went down during session, that the Type A board took care of all the expenditures. I don't know what 4B did last night.
I don't know if 4B, well, it wasn't on 4B's agenda because you had just talked about 4A paying for it, so I did not add this
Okay.
to the 4B agenda. Phyllis did look to see what was done in 2015, and the only thing that it really shows is about $1,550 paid out, and that included about $1,300 for the bus, $150 for Jason's Deli, about $1,400 for the bus and $150 for Jason's Deli. So that
Yeah.
was the only expenses at that point in time that we could find.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess that Jason's Deli was probably lunch then, so.
She was thinking maybe it was breakfast.
I'm thinking it was breakfast. I thought that they had brought in some breakfast that morning. Y'all met here and maybe had coffee and maybe Jason's Deli
Yeah,
had
maybe she
fruit
did, yeah,
and-
cause typically it's just like donuts and kolaches and stuff like that, but yeah, maybe she did. And then I think that year we had pizza, so maybe someone paid for lunch that year. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I don't know, it was before my.
Yeah. But I guess Tracy wanted the board to discuss the cost, the
So I
budget.
just want to get some sort of idea for what y'all want to spend on this event. We've already looking at $1,700 for the bus, and we've got that rented and reserved. If we do the donuts, coffee, and breakfast items in the morning, which I think the chamber for Encore is gonna cover the expense for the breakfast. And then if we do the lunch, we're looking at probably $15 a person for lunch. Just a barbecue from Pokey Joe's, I believe it was.
Yeah, so we, Encore has an office down there where we lease some office space in one of the buildings right across the street from the Capitol. And if you've ever been down there during the session, it's a zoo at the Capitol Grill, especially when you have a group trying to get together and everything. So we were just gonna walk across the street and we reserved the conference room in the basement of that building. And so we would bring in lunch. And so I had our Austin folks kind of give me some ideas on who to use for catering,
Great.
instead of just doing pizza. 'Cause it
So you
was,
had 40 people?
Max is
50
50.
50's max.
So
50,
spending,
at 15 and 750, plus 1,700,
Up to
So
us.
plus, I mean, 2,500, 20, whatever that we're looking at, or
roughly, yes, sir.
pick a number,
With
Yeah,
2,700, do you know?
2,700 to give a couple $100 of extra cushion.
Average person about $20 or so. 20 US.
And the other, only other thing that we're working on is we're actually gonna work on a legislative agenda that we can give to our state rep and senator. And then, if we have some issues on this agenda, like educational stuff, that we'd like to deliver it to the committee chair of education. And we'll get some input from the ISD. We'll get some input from Susan on any town issues, and then Tracy will do the EDC. But I've gone down with other cities, and they have this like little legislative agenda that they'll give to folks along with a gift. So there might be a little bit of charge in printing that, and we decided to do a couple little gifts, right? With the agenda.
I'd probably go ahead and just cap it at 3,000. And we already have our miscellaneous expense, and we would just do a mid-year budget adjustment for the $3,000 to that account.
You wanna make a-
So, how do we say this? Let's try it first time. Motion to pass the budget of $3,000 for the capital and event budget with, that's it.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Core and a second from Mr. Cash to approve the capital Sunnyvale Day event budget at 3,000.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And have you all RSVP'd yet?
Yes.
All right. We'll move on to item number 4. Discuss and consider 2018-2023 Economic Development Strategic Plan. That would be you, right? I'll be passing that off.
Sorry, I was making a notation. Yes, so I sent the strategic plan. This encompasses all the revisions that we have talked about over the last year when we met with the council, items that anybody else has expressed that they would like to see changed or noted. So the only thing missing out of this document currently is the implementation sheet. So you'll see a bunch of blank pages when you get to the end of the strategic plan. And if you'll remember, this was another piece that we had that kind of shows timelines, the goals, everything laid out, who the responsible party was that would be working on it. So I'm currently revising this based on the revisions of the strategic plan. So when I get this revised, I'll send this as well. I do know that Mr. Cora had some comments or suggestions that he would like to talk about as well. I know because this got sent out just a couple of days ago that some may not have had time to look at it. So what we're going to do is kind of talk about, Mr. Cora was able to look at it, so he wanted to talk about his items. And then if anybody else has anything as you're looking over it, if you let me know by the end of the month, and then we'll bring this back at the March meeting to also review then. The hope is that we get this finalized at the March meeting, so if you have any comments, to let me know beforehand so I can bring you the final copy in March so that it can go before council at the end of March for their blessing on it as well. James?
Oh, so I just want to first, as I start this conversation, I wasn't there for the whole process of this, so I'm just talking from a small point of view. So in respect, I also want to keep that in mind. But my thought is when we look on page 3, in the blue highlight, it talks about economic diversification, increased commercial tax base, more local job opportunities, tourism, and the last line was parks and trails. And these were the goals. And I felt some of this is, there could be either a wording change or it can be, we could add some stuff because we're missing some key components. And I'll go over it, like when you talk about tourism and parks and trails, those are things that I feel like are more the actions that we're going to do. And I felt that should be changed to, our goal should be a strong quality of place. When you talk, one of the things that when I read through the task, we're missing like strong social capital. Those are events that we've been doing, like the Oktoberfest, the fireworks and stuff like that. That should be one of our goals, to have a strong social capital. Another part is, we talked about in a couple of meetings, and then I read it in this plan over here, our human investment. How do we increase our human investment? That's like partnering with the schools, getting that workforce that we need here. And I don't see anything commented here as a goal. And the last piece is, it's probably more than that, but one of the other things I felt like is develop entrepreneurial ecosystems, because we're talking about driving businesses here and driving that type of business spirit here, and I don't see anything about that. And the last thing I think we all agree is the dedication to progress. And again, all these, I went and researched on websites and stuff like that as we talked about it, but I felt like we're either missing it or we're just putting more task. And again, I'm speaking from just a few sessions of meetings, and I felt like we're just missing some key components that should be our goals. And that's just my thoughts. Sorry.
There are some very good points, James.
Okay, so
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's go.
So when you talk about tourism, parks and trails, I kind of marked that out and said that should be more, our goal should be strong quality of place, or meaning the type of lifestyle that we're talking about. We want that quality of lifestyle here, strong quality of lifestyle. When we talk, the other part.
You think those are combined with, tourism and parks and trails? Do you think that that's a combined fit into?
Correct.
Your term was
Strong quality of
strong
place.
quality
Place.
A place.
place.
Yeah.
And then you did just mention, or quality of life,
Yeah.
That's a separate one?
No, I just.
or that instead
Same
of place.
thing. The wording, I guess. And the second part was strong social capital, and we're already doing it, which are all the events that we do.
That would probably fall under tourism too, this, more of this,
Could,
that.
yeah, could
Mhm.
be. The
Social what?
strong social capital.
Capital?
Third was the human investment, which is really partnering with the schools and colleges and stuff like that on promoting that the workforce that we need. The other one was develop entrepreneurial ecosystem. Of course, dedication to progress. And again, so I'm throwing these out there, but it's just me asking the question, are these more goals that's written right now, or are they more task? And I felt like, I say that in a very in a sincere way and respect, is I felt like these were more task. Some of them, not all, but some.
Final was dedication of.
Development of.
Dedication to progress.
Oh, dedication to progress.
To
sorry.
progress, okay, I'm sorry.
What are your thoughts on that, Tracy? Maybe in more tasks than goals and.
Gotta digest my brain. I think that in, not talking about the goals versus task, but in the original development goals, the reason tourism was one of them, and the same for, it's kind of one of our targeted industries that you see on page 7.
Yeah, I wrote that.
And so that was kind of, I guess, the idea behind the tourists wanting to be that destination community to attract the tourists, so that it's not necessarily people coming to move here or live here. They're coming to spend their tax dollars and then
Right.
leaving, so that it's not that burden on the town as far as infrastructure or anything like that. So I think with the goal of tourism in mind, that's where that was kind of stemming from, to kind of pinpoint that one out specifically as just that tourist type community. parks and trails, I mean, I think that's easily saying something with strong quality of life, strong quality of place. I think the overall goal has been the parks and trails system, and just specifically, so I think that that's why that one was pinpointed that way, was just because we, at that point in time, and obviously that's not with this board, but as you notice, it's combined with both 4A and 4B in mind for one plan.
Right.
And so that's where you'll see a lot of the park stuff in here, as opposed to 4A stuff. Because this way it was a document that this position could work off of for both boards, as opposed to having two different documents with two different boards.
Sure.
So the Parks and Trails was just specifically pinpointed to the Parks and Trails system. For the events that you talked about, the strong social capital, was that actually referring to the event section, or was that still on the page 3 that you were looking at that?
So on that one, it's just saying we're missing that as an opportunity to say, those are, because you have it somewhere on here, we talk about Oktoberfest, we talk about the fireworks, and we list a whole bunch of,
On page 15,
yeah,
local town events.
correct, there it is. Now it's saying that's our commitment to the strong social capital.
Okay,
Instead of the word tourism. So what you're,
Yeah, I mean, and again, these are all thoughts, you know, we either edit or add or not, you know, but it's just to throw out there.
no, I think ideas are great.
yeah.
We've looked at it so many times, so have a fresh set of eyes on it, is everybody's gonna find something.
I think that the strong quality of life could mean several different things, and I believe that 4B is going to really want to see that parks and trails in there, because that's really been
Sure.
their vision. That's,
It does seem like maybe we're pinpointing the 4B goals or the 4B tasks as opposed to ours. And, I mean, I appreciate the broadening
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the terms, but I don't know that we can change 4B's selected goals.
Correct. And
I don't know that we
Don't know.
can't, but it does seem like maybe that we're targeting 4B as opposed to 4. The first 3 are definitely 4A goals. The last 2 seem to be
more towards 4B.
leaning toward 4B's
4B's.
agenda as opposed to ours.
I
I don't know if they specifically selected that
I
wording,
don't know.
or if we've just seen it so many times, we, you know, it's ingrained, but, you know, I think that would be their call to change their specific goals.
To me, the goals need to be
Wait.
specific.
Turn this thing, turn your
You
thing
know,
on.
oh, I'm sorry.
This just helps with the microphone.
I think goals should be specific, you know, as far as what it is we're trying to achieve. And I don't have disagreements with, as you drill deeper into explaining some of these, but I don't, in my opinion, and this is just me,
right.
those labels are very generic. In other words, what is human investment? It's not a goal. To me, it's not a defined goal. Maybe if it can be, you know, worded a little different. I mean, we have a little discussion in here about talk of working with colleges, possibly. I think it's deeper in the document as far as maybe a training or something like that. But if in my opinion, if we could expand it to be a little more specific, I could see things, you know, something like that.
Sure.
To me, it's vague as it's stated.
I mean, perfect. I mean,
But I like I'm like Tracy, it's like after you've seen this thing 50 times or more, it gets.
and
It's
it's
like
also
memorizing the eye chart, right?
and it's also the interpretation that one into, you know, when you work at one of those Fortune 500s, your goal starts off this broad comment, and then you narrow down your tactics. And that's what I was interpreting. Versus here, we're interpreting, it needs to be more of a narrowed down to a Pacific, which is great. Either way, it's just a conversation to say,
No,
hey,
and I
let's throw it
appreciate
out.
that, I really do.
And, yeah, I really liked when you mentioned the entrepreneurship, sorry. that word.
Entrepreneurship.
Then I think that that's something we've talked about, but I'm not sure if I want to list that right up here, right in the front, because that's going to be something hard for us to obtain in the next 5 years.
Not necessarily. So with the entrepreneurship, you're looking at we're developing that right now with a co-working space. I mean, those are entrepreneurs coming in, they don't exactly have a space or can afford a space for their opportunities right now in a storefront. So they're coming and trying out that ability to be able to build their business and then go to an actual storefront. And they've kind of alluded to that too, where the hope is that they start building the companies here, and then maybe across the street or somewhere else in Sunnyvale, we look at building them businesses so that they actually can make their business established somewhere else.
In the co-create space is what?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I thought that was more for like CEOs that were in town, or large corporations where they wanted to meet somewhere more locally, or I didn't realize that we were going to be doing that kind of starting businesses up from the ground level.
So the co-working space is a little bit of both. You have kind of the incubator sections of it to where you can look at, but then you also have the memberships that people that work from home can just go and have an opportunity to sit somewhere, mingle with people, have that conference room that they wouldn't necessarily have in their home. So it's kind of putting those two hand in hand. You're still not going to have the large corporations necessarily unless they're just coming, not in the building. They are, because large corporations already have their workspace, their conference rooms, stuff like that. So this is more tailored to the people that need somewhere they can't afford the phone bill, they can't afford the conference room, the Wi-Fi, the internet, all of that. So they're coming together to this place to be able to utilize all of those things in one component, and all they have to do is pay a membership price.
Thank you for that clarification, because that's great.
So I
Starting
think
an incubator project, that's fantastic.
somewhere within this document, absolutely we can add entrepreneurship. And then I was also looking up for the human investment partnerships, and that kind of falls under marketing on page 14 and 15, to where it talks about the partnerships with the school district, the chamber, the ISD, and then it also talks about the relationships and partnerships with the Dallas Regional Chamber, DFW. But I can definitely add, because we actually have our primary industry roundtable focus next week is on workforce. So adding the workforce component in here is definitely kind of not within this document. Just some initial thoughts while I read his, Mr. Carr, I read your email earlier, but then went right into another meeting, so I'm sitting here processing it and thinking about it right now, so I apologize.
No, not at all. It's a good conversation regardless, discussion.
So what are our thoughts of incorporating some of the suggestions into these goals that are listed? And I know that we talked about not changing 4B's, their goal.
That's my thought. If we're going to change 4 and 5, or 4 and 5 are going to be modified, they need to be modified by 4B, because those are definitely their goals, as opposed to.
I actually agree, because I never knew that, so that's a great call.
Would we consider these 5-year goals? Terry, you mentioned that earlier. Or is that?
Yeah, because it's our 5-year plan.
You're right. Okay, I can get it. Part of it is you get a little bit of this in the goals. You get when you look at the vision, you pick up a few more of these things. And it's like, is it a goal? Is it a vision? Is it a a tactic? A strategy? I don't know.
Somehow, everything in this package should feed out of these 5 goals.
I agree with that.
Well, and if you'll look on page 8, you'll see kind of refresh your memory on what council had picked as their top 5 quality of life, top 5 economic development initiatives, and then the A and B boards had both picked out their top 5 goals.
Goals aligned exactly with council.
That happened.
Mr. Sherman.
I said, our goals aligned exactly the same as
New
council?
council, I'm sorry.
They are.
That's good. It's a great thing. Great minds think alike.
So I can look at those and see if there's any wording change or something else we can come up with on the 4B side of it. And just kind of bring it up to them and get their thoughts. And then can definitely take what you're talking about though and incorporate it within the document. Because I think there's some good things that are
Yeah,
pointed
you
out.
can use some of James's suggestions as an expansion to their goals.
Mhm.
Well, even if you look
Great
at
idea.
more local job opportunities and somehow work that into human investment, which is more, sounds like more along the training side or the education side, maybe it just can be tweaked a bit to say, to include that facet. I think, to me, and again, the dedication to progress is it's vague to me. I mean, as far as putting that as a bullet item in this section would be vague. Because it is a narrow 5-year deal. And so are we gonna progress in 5 years? Well, we hope so. But I'm not sure what that means exactly.
And the thought of that was, but I do agree it's vague there. The thought of it was that our support, not only from us, but the council and everybody, is to support the investments that we're going to move forward to help, like infrastructure for a business, or actually helping small businesses retain what they need to do to expand. But that's where I was talking about dedication to progress, because we're not just limited into new businesses, but existing businesses, and we need to support that progress.
Retention and expansion.
There you go. That's it. Because I don't see any of that in there.
It's one of the goals within the document. There's a whole section on business retention and expansion.
Yep, somewhere in here.
Mhm.
But also, while y'all were talking about that, we could add, so the first sentence that is underneath that goals box could change that to say this plan details action steps to reach Sunnyvale goals and show the EDC's dedication to progress. And that way you're adding that as well in it, and then within the document it talks about what you had just talked about, where you were explaining what your definition of dedication to progress was with the business retention expansion, or and then that way it kind of lays that out.
That's good.
I mean, I was even looking at that first goal. It says economic diversification, but it's, in my opinion, it's expansion and diversification, or diversification and expansion. But you look on the next line, it says increase commercial tax base, which is kind of a catch-all for expanding existing or adding new. Maybe that's where it was factored in, but the overarching goal is really hopefully to expand the economic base one way or the other. It seems, that's one of our, I think, main goals.
So what else did you have, Mr. Core?
That was the main one.
That was it?
Actually, there's a couple other notes, but based on the conversation, it actually doesn't have value right now.
Okay. So you're gonna make a few changes and send it out?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, James.
Great comments.
Yes.
I think it's a very impressive plan. Looks better in color.
Okay, but we need to make sure that, so you're gonna send just maybe a little bit of just what that first page would look like, so that we're ready to approve it in March. And then we need to send you any other comments that we have.
Yes, I won't send corrections back out until I get everybody's
Everyone's.
corrections, because
Okay.
this is just, these would be minor changes compared to if anybody had anything else. So send me any changes by the end of February, I'll get all those put in and send them out.
Back before, so we have a chance, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you put a draft date on this somewhere?
Sure.
Or at least just so we know which one we're looking at?
Version 11.
Is it? I don't know which one.
Version 11?
I've got a few of these
It
in my
is.
packet.
I save it different every time I make changes.
Okay, so this is number 11?
Version 11.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes, I will put a draft date.
Okay.
It's a work in progress.
Yes. Great job for putting all that together in the
Yeah.
very beginning, so, I mean, it's been good. Okay, so we ready to move on, everybody? Okay. So item number 5, discuss and consider economic incentive guidelines. And Tracy's given us that and also emailed it.
Yeah, so on the dais, you will see, I wanted you to see kind of what we're working with. We've talked about creating this incentive guidelines. So 4B actually had this business incentive plan that was already put together. I did not find that 4A ever had anything done. But 4B had this document. I just went in and changed all 4B to 4A. But obviously there are things in here that do not apply to y'all and things in here that don't apply to 4B. So there are going to be eligible section 4A projects. That's going to change because these are not y'all's eligible 4A projects. Some of them are, but a lot of them fall under more 4B projects. So they'll be tailored differently. The other thing we talked about was kind of a matrix guidelines on how much incentive based on what type of business it is, how many jobs were created, what their capital investment is, what our return on investment would be, maybe different locations that are higher priorities than other. So all that will also be laid out within this document. This document is just kind of something to show you that there was something that was kind of looked at maybe in the beginning, before we thought maybe this went back as far as Pan Mundo. So this is the document that I'm working on and we'll bring back in March.
Okay, so we're not gonna approve this one in March.
Well, I'm hoping to get it out to you a lot sooner than
So
March.
maybe we can.
But yes, I'm sure there will be changes and everything else, but it will be brought back in March.
You know, the more we've talked about this, I've started to realize that it's hard to apply, you know, for a black and white type thinking person like I am. It's hard to apply a lot of that to some of these incentives coming forward. And I think a range, I mean, when that matrix comes out, I mean, it's going to be pretty general, it sounds like to me, based on even what you guys have done in the past. And that's fine. I mean, I think it's, in reality, that's the way it's going to be, but just even some indication of returns or whatever, that'll be good. But it's not going to be a top and it cranks out your answer at the bottom. It's not going to happen.
Still a little bit case by case.
It's still case by case. So I appreciate you doing that, but it'll be a guideline version, I guess.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm sure we haven't had much of an opportunity to look at it.
Well, the last few packages that we've looked at, we've applied the ROI model to, but we really don't have a defined ROI for specific types of businesses. Are we going to incorporate that into our model or into this incentive plan, or are we still going to do it on a case-by-case basis? Because with the last specific retailer / restaurant, we agreed to a certain amount of incentive. 4B agreed to a lesser amount because of the term of the repayment. Are we going to incorporate that into our model or not, or
Yeah, the
are we going to do it
ROI,
individually?
the ROI will be calculated in there. So if you think, you know, you're going to weigh the ROI a little bit differently on a manufacturing company than you are a retail restaurant. So taking those types of industries into consideration and looking on when you want your return on investment. So going through the last couple of incentives that we have looked at has kind of been, for me, listening to what y'all are comfortable with, and I've kind of notated some of those things down, but a lot of that falls around the retail side of it. Co-working, y'all were more apt to kind of look at something like that, but y'all are 4A. So 4A's matrix is gonna look different than 4B's matrix is.
So we will have a matrix at some point.
Yes, sir. That's what I was saying, that this document is not by any means even started, really. So next time you see this, it will have all those matrix in it that will be ROI, types of businesses, locations, capital investment, all of that that will fill where you're comfortable with. So you want to be able to, you won't incentivize a company, for example, that has anything less than 25 jobs, or their capital investment is anything below $5 million, just throwing out numbers. So that will be on here. Or if it's between $5 and $10 million, then your ROI has to be this. Or if it's between 10 and 20 million, your ROI would look like this. So just kind of taking different scenarios and putting them into on a chart.
And the ROI being based on X number of years for a specific type of business.
Correct.
So a manufacturing facility could be much longer than a leased restaurant space.
Right, and with those, you're generally looking more when you get into that with your abatements, and those are typically 10 years. So you kind of will weigh that a little bit differently looking at that than, you know, maybe a retail restaurant, you want your ROI back in 2 years.
Or no longer than the initial lease. Okay. And that will be part of the model.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, pretty good. All right, we'll move on to item number 5. Discuss and consider we just did that, sorry. We'll move on to item number 6. Discuss and consider update on Provident project. Tracy.
Just wanted to give an update. There's been some rumors floating around town that Chick-fil-A is not coming, and so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of what's going on over at the Provident project. So currently, right now, on February 18th, Provident itself, Chick-fil-A, and Panda Express are all coming before P&Z. Originally, the lot that Chick-fil-A had bought, there's an Atmos easement that runs through the property. And originally, they were told that they could build their parking lot and their landscaping over the easement. When they went to actually pull the permits to be able to do that, Atmos told them they could not build the parking lot or landscaping over their easement. So they're having to shift their building over. And so because of that, they're having to come back and do site plans, revisit, they're having to replat the entire site, and then they're also replatting because of the lot that Panda Express wants. So because of all that, it's pushed Chick-fil-A back, delaying closing. So the date of 2020, 2021 for them actually coming is still the same. It's just their closing date has not happened because they have not gotten their plans officially approved by the town. So they're not going to close until their plans are approved. So we're just going through that whole process. They were supposed to close in January. Provident has said with this that has come up now, it may just be pushing it back 60 to 90 days before they actually close on the property. Clarify anything that you may have heard, and then certainly if you have any other questions or hear anything else,
Does
let me know.
Provident obtain legal advice about this Atmos
I don't
protocol or
know
whatever?
the details or what in depth of what they've talked about.
Or Provident's gonna have streets over it, over the Atmos utility easement. They have to serve the whole process. This is different. We're seeing this a little bit too in our development with Atmos.
So
Their pipeline.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is they're more strict when it's a large pipeline. Does that sound right?
Well,
And-
they change the rules yearly. The question is, are they usurping the surface rights that were spelled out in the original documents that they agreed to back in the day.
So you can put a street over a pipeline,
Easement.
but not a, what is it they're not, what is it that
That's what
Chick-fil-A
I'm saying.
can't put over the
Their
top?
parking lot.
Their parking
Parking
lot.
lot.
They don't want to put a parking lot on there.
And I don't know if that's come up with all the stuff that's been going on with the atmosphere lately with their lines, and I don't know if that's just become an issue now. I'm not.
The reason I say that is because we went round and round with them over some similar issues in our development, and push come to shove, we ultimately reached an agreement on some things, but I'm just wondering if Providence just rolling over on this, or if they've decided to maybe consider what their legal recourse is here, because they could lose a pad site potentially over something that they may not have to lose a pad site over.
Is it a financial concern? Is it that much different to cut a street as opposed to cutting a parking lot?
That's my question. What's the difference?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I was curious, are they coming to P and Z with an Atlas approved plan? Or what?
That they're not building on it anymore. They have shifted everything over to be outside of the Atmos easement.
So they have changed their plan, and they're going to P and Z for approval of a revised plan?
Mhm.
Relocating to a different side of the property, or?
Yeah, where's it
They're
at?
literally just shifting it to the west, southwest. Here, they're literally just shifting the building 12 feet.
Okay, so not that much.
Only 12 feet.
To the east, or to like the southeast? That's
I'm
south.
thinking north. It's coming this
North is this
direction
way.
away
Okay.
from.
It's on an
the
angle, it's at an
subway.
angle, it cuts to an angle.
Well, 12 feet's not a whole lot, so that's good. So they're not gonna lose out on any of their, like he said, pad site or anything like that?
I don't know if it's cutting into the next pad side over. It's my understanding it is, and that's part of the replatting.
Oh, they're replatting the pad sites?
They're replatting the whole development.
Okay, okay.
Because of this?
Because of this and because Panda Express has taken a lot that essentially is one big lot. They're gonna replat it into 2 lots.
Never easy.
They're big boys, they certainly know more than I do about all this, so.
Well, I'll reach out and ask the question that you've asked.
Should at least consider it.
I just know in the day, it's been a while that it was like their big, huge transmission easements where they had transmission gas facilities running through that they were very, very particular on. Understandable.
They have 2 big pipelines in that easement, but still, they're making up new parameters or whatever you want to call them, rules as they go along.
Out of curiosity, how big is a big gas pipeline?
I think it's 5 feet in diameter.
Wow.
And
Pretty good
it's
size.
considered transmission, I believe, just
There's
like
2
the
of them.
electric company. You know, our more high voltage lines are called transmission lines, where other
Mhm.
ones are distribution lines. And I think it's kind of the same technology for the gas company. There's a transmission, gas pipelines that
That
carry more gas
I
than.
hope a 5-foot gas line serving more than a couple of businesses.
Yeah, no, it's like coming through and, yeah.
Mhm.
And
It's
then-
so big you can't tap into it here
Right.
locally. So, yeah, and there's 2 of them. But, yeah, there's got to be legal precedent here somewhere that's been set. And like I said, Providence big boys, I'm sure they have attorneys on staff.
So it's moving gas to a central location where it's redistributed?
Yes,
That's- Okay.
yes, it's a distribution line.
It's not the gas line for the property.
No.
Just happens to.
In
cross
other
the
words,
property.
you wouldn't want to build a building on top of the pipeline,
Well, heck, no.
but parking lots and other surface concrete features
It's
have always
usually acceptable.
have been allowed. We had an issue with our amenity center parking lot on it with them, and then, like I said, we worked it out, but not without some teeth gnashing. So,
Okay, so anything else on, okay,
No.
thanks for the update. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, discuss future events.
So a couple of things for our next board meetings. In March, our regular board meeting is March 13th. Need to look at possibly moving that back to March 20th.
Spring break.
May not really affect anybody on this board, but spring break is that week. And so there were a couple people that were out, and it's going to affect the meeting. So just looking at moving both of the meetings back a week.
Is that your spring break too? That
It is.
week? That's fine.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody good? Okay.
Yes.
So March 20th.
To
Yes.
March 20th. And the same thing for April meeting, if we could move the April 10th meeting back to April 17th. And part of that is just for that week would be a council of 4B and 4A, and then leaving all day on Thursday for the Sunnyvale Day of the Capitol. So I'm trying to just move the board meetings back a week to not have such a hectic week that
April
week.
11th is Sunnyvale Day, and we probably have to be here by 5:30. Me, you anyway. So, and then I didn't realize you'd have all those meetings trying to do all that. And
Yes, that would just be a hard week.
I think I already, let me check the 17th, everybody check and see if it's gonna be okay with you all. I think I already did. Sure. Is everybody good with the 17th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll have 2 meetings again that day, Kate.
Mhm. That's okay.
Our regular town council meetings is not February 18th. I had P&Z in my mind on that one. Our next council meeting is February 25th and March 11th. But if you're interested in viewing it on streaming, the P&Z meeting will be streamed 18th as well. Our primary industry roundtable is next Tuesday, and the main focus is workforce development. We have a speaker from Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas coming. We have a speaker from Eastville College that's coming. We are partnering with Mesquite ISD to help with CTE programs to try and get some workers or internships or apprenticeships with our industry businesses, because our school district does not currently have CTE programs. So working with them so that they can help get some of their workforce and needs that they have, as well as taking some of the kids that are looking for jobs that we have here and allowing them to come over and kind of shadow as well here. So we're building that partnership. They're going to come and speak about it, and then Terry is going to speak on behalf of the chamber and how she fares hiring and being able to blast that out as a membership.
Is that here? Or,
So we'll be here at Town Hall.
and what time is that?
It's from 11:30 to 1. Would you like to?
Yeah, it's just in talking with the folks I know in the industrial park, and I think it's everywhere, Tracy and I talked about this, but workforce is huge. They can't find qualified workers. So we're gonna, hopefully this will help to have some more tools.
As James knows, skilled workforce is hard to find
Yes,
right
yeah,
now,
I'm sure.
so-
Our company is actually doing something similar to that with East Fifth. They're doing an apprenticeship of some nature, and that's bringing in the talent.
Mhm.
So exactly what y'all are doing.
Okay.
Great.
I know, her name is drawn, so
Oh,
they, we had, to give you kind of an idea, we've got about 20 people that are gonna attend that, and our very first one, we only had 2.
Good job.
Very nice.
In all the talk about downtowns, I have joined the Main Street America, become a member of Main Street America to kind of get more ideas, figure out how to build a downtown. So I'm going to attend the Main Street America conference at the end of March. I'll be out the 24th through the 27th. Mark your calendars for April 29th. That is our Town Council and Economic Development Board joint meeting. At that meeting, the plan is to talk, we'll kind of do it staggered like we did the last one, where 4A comes in, starts first, and then 4B will come. And the plans are to talk about downtown, the Glacier Track, and Rails to Trails as the 3 big topic conversations, because by that time we should have definite answers on Rails to Trails. We should have a vision put together to be able to present to both boards and the council about downtown. And then the Glacier, we should have a preliminary master plan at that point to be able to present to everybody. And then next month, we'll talk about other topics that y'all would want to bring up with council.
What time is that gonna be?
Probably looking at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't think they can meet at 5. So, I had a question. So on the 29th, we're gonna talk about give them an update on the Downtown Vision Committee. Are any of the stakeholders, I mean, I'm sure they can come because it's an open meeting, but were the property owners gonna be here on that, for that 29th? I can't remember.
We haven't
17.
talked about them being here. I know in the April 3rd, they're gonna come to our just committee meeting.
And then the 17th.
And then and then we're just gonna come together on the 17th to kind of talk about that meeting and how to plan for the joint meeting. Our vision with the stakeholders in mind and what they've presented.
And I guess the reason I'm asking that, it doesn't really matter if the stakeholders come, is because you've got 4A and 4B are both part of this Downtown Vision Committee. So is that something we'll probably do right at the end of 4A before 4B, so both boards are there?
Is that, and I'm just asking, is that something where the vision committee attends to that joint meeting, or is it just representatives from?
Well, currently the vision committee meeting, or the downtown vision committee meeting consists of Terry, K. Paul, Larry, Alan, and Nikki Anthony, and then myself, Leslie, and Susan. So, I mean,
So most people are there. Okay.
So have y'all already started holding meetings?
we've already, today, right before this, we held our third meeting. We've got a laid out plan through the end of April, and then we're going to bring the stakeholders as the bank, Derek Saucer's project, Jack Kirkland, the Hennards, and kind of getting their thoughts and ideas on what they're looking at for their properties, how they see that as the future of Sunnyvale. Do they plan on selling? Do they plan on developing? Kind of getting all their thoughts and opinions on it as well. So we were tasked with being able to come up with a vision first, and then stakeholders, and then presenting it.
Hold on, good.
Quasi.
And then,
The other thing about, so you'll notice we're moving our April meeting back to the 17th, and then we have this joint meeting on the 29th. If we don't have anything pressing in April to really talk about, we may just not have an April meeting and just have the joint meeting on the 29th. It could be vice versa. We don't have a meeting in May and go ahead and have the April meeting and maybe not one in May. So out the further we get, the closer we get to those dates.
yeah, because we talked about that and it was hard to determine now, but I know that we've talked to the board members about when we have a joint meeting, trying to not have ours if we don't need to.
And then as well, June 19th, we'll do an economic development 101 for town council and the boards, and bringing in a third-party consultant to come in and kind of give best practices, trends, what economic development is, what you can and can't spend your money on, and anything else you possibly want to know about economic development. So that'll be from about 6 to 9.
6 to. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions? Well, there's a lot of stuff. Okay. We'll move on to item number 8, discuss future agenda items.
So just as a reminder, we had talked about adopting a purchasing policy, and then we got to a point where we really needed the town to kind of go into it further, because we don't adhere to the same guidelines and standards that the town does. So the town has put together their purchasing policy, and it's been adopted by town council. So we'll get the one-page updated and kind of tack that on to the rest of it so that we can adopt the same purchasing policy, so that we adhere to what the town does as well. So it's just mid-year budget, as Phyllis alluded to earlier. We will start mid-year budget conversation next month. And we will have next month to kind of look at it, go over things, and then we can look at it one more time in April, and then it'll go before council. So has anything to add, Paul, if you want to, Terry, if y'all want to meet as the treasurer and president and talk about some things prior to that, we can do that. One of the things that we may need to look at is updating our iPads. So 4B doesn't really use the iPads, but all of you use your iPads, right? No, yes.
I do.
Okay, so most of you. What we're coming into is that they're outdated and we can't get updates put on the iPads to where it will download some documents. So we're at a point where we need to get new iPads. We're looking into, it was asked last night about the possibility of a board member being able to purchase the iPads, double checking with the attorney, but right now it would go through an auction process, and so you would just have to be included in the auction. But we'll get more details on that and what we need to do with them. They can't even be updated. I don't know how good they are anyway.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, because I thought about one for the chamber, but I tried to download the Dropbox,
Yes.
and I didn't have the,
Can't download the updated
because the
version
iOS
of-
or something, I don't know about computers, but anyway.
So, and then James, we'll give James an opportunity to have one because he hasn't had one yet. Can't update any of them to put new information on.
It'd be all
It
complete.
must mean you're staying.
And so then, as well, we'll bring back the strategic plan, the incentive guidelines. I think that's it, unless anybody has anything else for future agenda items.
I did have, oh, I'm sorry, go you.
Go ahead. The only other thing I was thinking about is that if we determine not to have the April meeting, we talked about the mid-year budget, that it goes before council. So we may have to, or is there a possibility, since we won't, that joint meeting won't start till 6, that we still have ours at 5 on the 20th?
So that's a good point. So we will have to have an April meeting. Because this joint meeting is after when it's gonna go to council. So we need to have it prior to last April meeting for council. So
Yeah, I just thought about
plan on the
that.
April meeting and we'll look at the May meeting. Yes, good point. Unless, unless for by chance you decide to approve it in March, then we don't even have to worry about it in April.
So what do we need to do to maybe get that done? So Paul and I need to sit down with you or with Phyllis or Liz or?
If you want for us to meet prior to, we can talk about some changes that you want to make. I know Phyllis and I have a couple of changes.
I think it'd be okay if it's just you all and our treasurer. I'm okay to bow out and trust our treasurer.
Could we then get a,
Thanks.
He does a good job.
could we then get an emailed preliminary budget with
Sure.
the changes highlighted? Because we could really bog down in a 1-hour meeting
Right.
on that if we don't see it before the meeting.
The one question I had is, of the projects we had on kind of for this year, was looking at that signage, entry signage into town, and I think pretty sure we budgeted an item. That project that can be moving forward behind the scenes as far as what's required for there or what our possibilities are? I know there was some looking going on as far as, where we might be able to put a sign or something, but.
So Lyle and I both have had several things on the plates here lately, so we have not had a chance to get to it. But yes, that is something that's still on the forefront of the mind, that is the project we're still moving forward with. So it's not been put on, it has been put on back burners. But yes, it is still going to move forward.
Well, and I'm well aware there's a lot of other things going on, maybe higher importance, which is fine. I was just curious about it and how it might impact the budget discussion or whatever.
Hopefully it stays in that we would still need to look at how we kind of said, figuring out and pinpointing which locations we need to do, if surveys, if we need to do land acquisitions for that, what type of signage you would be looking at, engineering costs. So,
Anybody else have anything? Okay, well, and we have no executive session tonight, so we'll adjourn the meeting at 6:09.
wow,
Gather in the break room for dessert
We couldn't.
to celebrate Tracy and Paul's birthdays. Walking like that.
I stopped counting where she was counting on
You didn't have to.
I stopped at 49, I'm 36 now.
You're going backwards. You're not allowed to go backwards.
I just passed I'll be passing your 39.
yeah, I know.
come to
Let's
grips.
eat.
Yeah, let's go have dessert.
I've come to
You
grips
haven't
with
had
my old
dinner
age.
yet, right? That'll be my dinner, probably.
Same here.
Yeah. There'll be enough calories, right? That it should be our dinner.
One of those.
Phyllis, thank you for being here.
Oh, dessert bar is open.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, do not forget, because there's a lot of dessert in there. I mean, 10
Yeah, I go every morning about 8:30.
We may have
I haven't been able to walk the circle in